Warning, this video contains team selection and captain choices which some viewers may find offensive.
Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before reviewing Game Week 1, a very quick mention of OneFootball who have very kindly sponsored this video. The world's best football news app has now been made even better, relaunching with a fresh new design. Gain access to news, scores and stats from leagues all over the world, with a brand new interface that's cleaner, simpler and smarter than ever. As for FPL, you can follow each team in the Premier League and then get live updates from all the goals and assists every game week. Download it for free using the link in the description box below. It wasn't a great start for the back line, with just 1 of 4 returning points. Clean sheets are difficult to predict at the best of times, and when you select defenders or players in FPL in general, you've got to measure their success over more than just one game week. I did get a welcomed assist and clean sheet from James Justin though, with Leicester remaining fairly untroubled throughout their game against West Brom. The Foxes only conceded 3 shots inside the box in that game, the second least over the weekend, so a pretty comfortable day for them. Though James Justin may not be a long-term option, with his starting place under threat once Pereira comes back from injury, 3 of their next 4 games are at home against Burnley, West Ham and Villa. So hopefully he can stay in the team for those at least, and pick up a few clean sheets in the short term. As for the expensive and very popular Alexander-Arnold, well, it was certainly a disappointing opening game week for him. With the usually defensively solid Liverpool shipping 3 goals at home to Leeds, you'd have to think now that a clean sheet in the next 2 game weeks against Chelsea and Arsenal are also looking very unlikely. It is worth noting though that following those 2 games, Liverpool then have a very nice run of fixtures until game week 19. So for me personally, there's just no sense in transferring him out. Yes, it was a concerning display defensively, but we all know what he can do going forward, and from game week 4 onwards, I know I'm going to want him back again anyway. In my midfield, the large majority of my points came from the 2 big hitters Aubameyang and Mo Salah, who both justified their hefty price tags on the opening weekend. Admittedly, there were moments before the season began where I had considered going without Mo Salah and instead spreading the funds around the squad. Thankfully though, I stuck with the FPL legend and was very relieved to do so. The Egyptian King produced an outstanding 8 shots inside the box against Leeds, by far the most of any player in game week 1, and looked extremely sharp as he went on to score a hat-trick. Was it a shame not to captain Mo Salah's 20-pointer? Of course it was. But do I regret captaining Aubameyang instead? Not for a minute. After such a shocking season for me last year, one of my resolutions this season is to not get bogged down on things that have happened in the past. All we can do is make informed decisions, follow our instincts and back them, and there's simply no point wasting time with regret on what we could have done. If our decisions fail, then so be it. We've got to stay positive and move straight on to the next week. Aubameyang still scored against Fulham anyway, and I'm more than happy with his 14 points. For game week 1, I took a short-term punt on Harvey Barnes in place of Mason Greenwood, who wasn't playing. Having watched the game against West Brom, I do feel very unlucky not to get a return from Barnes. He produced an impressive 5 shots inside the box against the Baggies, the second most in the league, and was arguably one of Leicester's best players in that game. In many ways, it was a typical Harvey Barnes performance, who showed so much promise with some great movement, dribbling and general attacking threat, but lacked that clinicalness to finish his chances. Based on this performance though, I think he's done enough to stay in my team for now and get another chance in game week 2. Much like the defence, it was too a disappointing week for the forwards, with a surprise benching for Mitrovic in game week 1, and my short-term punt on Danny Ings instead of Martial also failing to pay off. Having watched Fulham's performance, it didn't exactly fill me with much confidence on owning Mitrovic, even despite him not playing much. However, his next opponent's Leeds did just ship 4 goals in the previous game, and with Fulham needing to win that one, let's see how Mitrovic performs. He also then faces Villa at home in game week 3, so again, another game to potentially hold him for. As for Timo Werner, well, it was a mixed bag of feelings for me on his debut. His performance in general, I thought, was very good. It may not have resulted in many FPL points, but I was very impressed with the German, who looked very sharp and hungry in the opener against Brighton. He did well to win the penalty, and therefore bag an assist, and if it wasn't for a bad pass from Loftus-Cheek, he probably would have scored as well. The slight negatives though were that Jorginho was still taking penalties, and that does reduce Werner's appeal slightly. And more importantly, he also picked up a knock in that game and has now been listed as a slight injury concern by FPL. So for the opening game week, the team returned a respectable 62 points. Nothing special, but also not too bad. It gives me a starting rank of 1.4 million, and from 6 million players, I'll take that, with over 2/3 of the game not owning Mo Salah for game week 1. Let's move on to game week 2 now, and with Man City and United returning this weekend, that will surely make things interesting. Also, if you're enjoying the content here at FPL TV, then be sure to leave a like and most importantly of all, get subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new FPL video goes live. If you watched my team videos during pre-season, then you'd know the plan for game week 2 was always to bring in Anthony Martial this week, ready for United's opening home fixture against Crystal Palace. Danny Ings was meant to be a 1-week punt, and Ings to Martial is likely the move I'll make this week. Having watched Tottenham defend against Everton though, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Ings score against them in game week 2. I've not made this move yet, because annoyingly, Timo Werner now has this small injury concern, and depending on his fitness, I could easily bring Martial in for him instead. So let's see how the team could line up if I do go ahead with this move of Danny Ings to Martial. My cheaper midfielders, Barnes and St Maximin, both have home fixtures in game week 2 against Brighton and Burnley, and following their blanks on the opening weekend, I'll certainly be hoping for something from them. Looking at my defence for game week 2, I'm not sure I can see much coming from them again this week, with only Justin at home to Burnley a real decent shout for a clean sheet. After Tottenham's performance in game week 1, the 5 million invested in Ben Davies doesn't look to be great business, but it is still early days and they do have a good run of longer term fixtures. At 5 million, Chelsea's Reece James looks to be a very exciting prospect in this price bracket. Granted, he's not going to score a 20-yard screamer every game, but notably James was on corners, therefore giving him much more chance of assists. One player I've certainly got my eye on to replace Davis in future. On the bench, I now have Charlie Taylor back in contention after Burnley didn't feature in game week 1. To kick off their season, they face a tough trip away to Leicester, a side that just scored 3 goals in the opening weekend, so for now he sits first on my bench. I could bring him in for Ben Davies, but that would then give me a conflict of interest with Harvey Barnes playing against him. For the captaincy in game week 2, for now it currently sits with Aubameyang for the 2nd week running. His opponents West Ham looked very poor against Newcastle in game week 1, whilst Arsenal were quite the opposite. Granted, it is just one game week, but in terms of form, this one does look to be a nice matchup for the Gunners. The Gabonese striker has also just penned a new contract for Arsenal, and I think psychologically that can only give him even more hunger to score in this game. If I don't bring Anthony Martial in for game week 2, then I'm 100% captaining Aubameyang this game week. However, if I do make the move for Martial, then I'd say I'm more 80-20, and there is some temptation to give the armband to the Frenchman. We are yet to see United play this season though, and Crystal Palace do come off the back of a clean sheet against Southampton. Therefore, the sensible and logical move seems to be sticking with Aubameyang this game week. So that's how the team could line up for game week 2. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and if so, be sure to get subscribed to FPL TV. According to YouTube, just 50% of my viewers are currently subscribed, so please click that button if you haven't already. It really does help the channel. FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all in the next video.